Thanks for joining us, everybody, on ABC15.com, Facebook, and our mobile app as well, as President Trump arrives here in the Valley for what will actually be a two-night stay as he attends a number of events here in the Valley. Air Force One just now landing out at Sky Harbor. We want to show you a live picture of that as it comes in. The president's schedule, a pretty busy one, starting tomorrow with a Luke Air Force Base tour. And then, of course, that's going to happen with Senate candidate Martha McSally. Later in the day, he is expected to attend a rally in East Mesa and an airplane hangar there in the Mesa Gateway Airport area. Tickets only event, but a lot of those tickets are already sold. They are expecting thousands of people to be at that rally. And of course, a private fundraiser somewhere on the schedule there as well. The president not expected to leave the Valley actually until Saturday morning. And I'd like to see the picture out here on the studio cams if I can, just so I can get an idea of what we're looking at as the president continues to come in. The president is arriving here from Montana, where he's held a rally a little bit earlier tonight, apparently in a crusade to defeat two-term Senator John Tester, who is a Democrat in that area. You see the president's plane arriving here. Trump is trying to flip that Senate seat, actually, in Montana. It's a state that he won in 2016 by more than 20 points, and he's really trying to defeat this two-term Senate Democrat who he blames for derailing his VA Secretary nominee, Ronnie Jackson. Matt Rosendale is the Republican in that race, a Trump loyalist. And again, Trump won that state by 20 points, so he is attempting at this point to flip that state, hoping that those loyalists turn out, as the election is just about 19 days away now. The president is expected to stay in North Scottsdale, and if you are in that area, you're going to be aware of a few things. The White House has allowed us to release where he's staying. It's at the Princess in Scottsdale. That's the hotel right there on the TPC Scottsdale golf course. It's the place where they, of course, hold the Phoenix Open. A lot of people know that hotel because it backs right up to it. But if you live in that area or you're going to be traveling through that area, do keep in mind that there are going to be a lot of security precautions in that area. We also know that there's going to be a fundraiser up there in not too far away, somewhere in the Kierland Commons and Scottsdale Quarter area. So again, if your weekend plans take you through that area, keep in mind that you could see some road closures and certainly some additional security anytime the president is in town. We are expecting a number of dignitaries to show up to greet the president. Traditionally, the governor shows up here, as well as some senators. You might expect loyalists like CD6 Congressman Andy Biggs to be here as well. We know that Biggs is expected to speak at the rally tomorrow, as well as Martha McSally. And Trump comes here in the midst of what is a very, very tight and some say very ugly Senate race. This is also the most expensive political contest in this state's history. $60 million plus already spent on this campaign. 41 different outside groups, including PACs and dark money groups, have poured money into this hotly contested Senate race. Of course, the seat being vacated by Jeff Flake, who decided not to run for re-election. One of the more interesting notes from this rally tomorrow is that Governor Ducey is expected to be there. Ducey has not always been a fixture at some of these different rallies when the president arrives in town. In fact, he's, some would say, kept the president at arm's length. Certainly hasn't criticized the president, hasn't necessarily gone against him on issues, but at the same time, many people will remember that the late Senator John McCain consulted with Governor Ducey very heavily before casting that thumbs down vote to repeal, or the skinny repeal, of Obamacare, something that the president has talked about frequently, and it's certainly something that didn't make him or many Republicans happy. Governor Ducey certainly, though, never blamed for that vote necessarily, but certainly he was one of the people that McCain was leaning on pretty heavily for advice when he finally made that vote. So again, Governor Ducey is expected to be at this rally tomorrow, and certainly that's a sign that the governor isn't necessarily too concerned about how associating himself with the president necessarily helps or hurts him in an election here. The governor polling at this point double digits ahead of Democrat David Garcia. And so certainly he seems to be sitting on a very comfortable lead here. The president's approval rating, you know, not necessarily always the best. Usually it's hovering somewhere in the 40 to 45% area here in Arizona. And that means that there are a lot of folks out there who don't approve of what the president is doing. And there's, of course, that large independent vote that typically wins or loses general elections in this race. The governor, nonetheless, staying with his party and standing next to the president at this rally when the election is only a couple of weeks away. Zach Crenshaw is out at Sky Harbor right now. Zach, always a sight to see when Air Force One shows up on the tarmac.
That's absolutely right, Steve.
Zach,
we see it coming to a taxi. Yeah, can you hear me right now, Steve? Steve, can you hear me? Okay, so I hear you got me now. So yeah, you can see Air Force One now kind of coming into view a little bit more clearly, starting to taxi here. Obviously the motorcade is off to the camera's right, but a number of black limos kind of waiting to pull up and the president to come out. No sign of Governor Ducey right now, at least I don't see him on the ground, but he could pop out of one of the many vehicles and meet the president once he steps off Air Force One. He is expected to head straight to that Scottsdale hotel tonight that you mentioned. Nothing on the agenda this evening. He'll be waking up in the morning and then has a number of events planned tomorrow morning, culminating, of course, in that Make America Great rally, as he calls it, in Mesa, of course, stumping for Martha McSally in that hotly contested Senate race. But yeah, Air Force One certainly a sight to see. Lots of local and national media here all awaiting the president after his rally in Montana. He's making headlines already there. Seems like he makes headlines, Steve. At every single rally he goes at, he says something unpredictable. This time mentioning the journalist from Montana, or the journalist who was attacked in Montana. I'm going to send it back to you, though, as Air Force One comes into view. Steve?
Air Force One is a modified Boeing 747, often described as an Oval Office in the sky. It has full sleeping quarters and an office for the president himself, and also has all kinds of communications gear. This is a president who needs to be in constant contact with the White House, in constant contact with world leaders if he needs to be. And so this is one of the most impressive technological marvels, but it's also an aging one. And they've talked about possibly replacing it and modernizing it in ways. At this point, it's been retrofitted for quite some time, but nonetheless, it's still an impressive sight to see when this arrives here. There's lots of space on it, as we said, a Boeing 747s with jumbo jetliner. Often members of the media will travel on Air Force One with the president as well as several members of his staff. So it's an impressive thing to see. A lot of people ask, how do they get the limos and things like that in there? And typically, this isn't the only plane that's arriving as part of the president's travels around the country. Usually there's a big a plane called a C-5, which is a giant military transport plane, and you'd be shocked at what you can put inside there. Several limos inside this thing, and so whenever the president travels, he's always in that same very protected limo, often called the Beast. It's a modified Cadillac that's got bulletproof glass and one of the heaviest vehicles on the road, but nonetheless, it's the vehicle that's used to protect the president. We're trying to get a better, closer look here at exactly who else is going to turn out to greet the president, and that often says a lot about political connections in the state and whether people want to be seen with the president or not. And that's not just this president. Certainly there have been many others, including President Obama, who often shied away or stayed away from some contests in some states that leaned conservative because he knew ultimately it might not help a moderate Democratic candidate. And so it's always interesting to see who turns out to greet the president when he arrives on Air Force One. Zach Crenshaw, are we able to get a better vantage? It's hard to see where we are looking here in this screen. You may have a better look at who is out there right now standing by to greet the president.
Well, Steve, it looks like it's mostly Secret Service right now. I still am not seeing really any politicians. Do not see Governor Ducey right now. It's mostly his staff is walking up here on the right. You see kind of the stairs being wheeled up there now to open up the doors. But so far, it does not appear any politicians, but you can't really pan off right now because obviously doors opening, but to the right are a number of black cars that will come into frame here shortly, and I imagine that is where the greeters that we are expecting to see are going to be. So they're probably in this motorcade right now, and right now it's just looking like Secret Service and staff, but we should know here in a couple seconds.
I think very quickly we're going to see some folks arriving. It would be hard to believe that we wouldn't see, for instance, Martha McSally out there to greet the president. And here we go. We've got a whole bunch of folks kind of filing in now to take their place and shake the president's hand. All of this very choreographed, of course.
Yeah, it's like watching kind of a song and dance out here, and just all the bodies. What struck me, and this is my first time covering the landing of Air Force One, is just the magnitude, not only of the plane, but of the operation. There is so much law enforcement, not only Secret Service and all the agents that are both in suits and then many in tactical uniforms, but so many Phoenix police officers, just a massive operation. And here we see the motorcade pulling out, so we'll know shortly who's going to greet the president.
It's definitely a cooperative effort with local law enforcement. There's no question about it. Every single minute of a presidential visit is scheduled. Every route is planned out very carefully because they don't want to leave anything to chance. This is the most powerful person in the world. He is the leader of our nation, and it is up to the Secret Service and local law enforcement to make sure that he is protected everywhere he goes. And so all of these are very, very carefully choreographed, and security is tight just about everywhere the president arrives. And there we go. Donald Trump, the 45th President of the United States, arriving at Sky Harbor Airport, right in the midst of one of the hottest Senate elections in the country. And Zach, apparently we're watching what I think we're watching here. There is, there's not the normal line of dignitaries lined up to greet the president. He walked down the stairs, he got in the limo, and it looks like he's getting ready to take off.
That's certainly what I'm seeing, Steve. Yeah, he just hopped right in, obviously saluted the troops on either side, and has gotten in his limo. You see him there in the back seat, kind of silhouetted by the light. It's still illuminated from Air Force One, but it looks like he is going to take off. No sign of Martha McSally or Governor Ducey, who, you know, I don't know how much we should read into that. They obviously are going to be by his side tomorrow evening at the rally, so certainly they're going to be aligning with him politically. But yeah, no one out here this evening.
Yeah, we know the president likes to get up early. He's usually up watching morning news, and so obviously this is a coordinated effort. We haven't gotten any word that there wouldn't be any dignitaries there, but clearly that's the plan here. He is taken off in the motorcade. There was nobody there to greet him. He is on his way up to North Scottsdale, where he will spend the night and hit the ground running tomorrow as he heads over to Luke Air Force Base. President of the United States now on his way up to Scottsdale as we continue our live coverage here on Facebook and ABC15.com, as well as our mobile app. We're going to have much more for you coming up just about 20 minutes from now on ABC 15 News at 10.